worse off than you. Help them." Before he could act, voices pierced the chaos, not from the survivors on the river, but from somewhere just ahead, behind a stand of trees near the top of the muddy, flood-torn riverbank. Though Zane's hearing still came and went, he thought he distinguished two voices. One of them had him crouching, reaching for the pistol he'd bought in Memphis. Jones. He'd know that high-pitched, raspy voice anywhere. He froze. So he'd been right that the saboteur on the Sultana seemed familiar. His instinct to follow the man had saved his life, and now he had a choice to make. He could apprehend Jones with no proof, other than his own word, that he'd done anything wrong. Or he could dive into the river and save as many lives as possible. As the screams of burning, drowning men and women and the crackling roar of the blazing vessel splintered the night, he reeled with the pain in his head. Maybe he wasn't strong enough to accomplish either task. Suddenly, he could hear the judge's voice in his head. "Vengeance belongs to the Lord, Zane. Don't take that on yourself." The judge. Judge Teague had been on that boat, in Zane's spot on the upper deck. It seemed impossible that he could still be alive, but Zane had never bowed to the inevitable in his life. Praying for strength, he turned back toward the river. The explosion jerked her awake. Aurora sat up, heart slamming in her throat. The second-floor bedroom was dark and quiet, but she could still feel the iron bedstead quivering. Cousin Thomas Ann lay beside her, snoring a prosaic, ladylike purr. How could she sleep after that concussion? For that matter, Aurora herself seemed to be the only one awake in the house. Everyone always said she had the hearing of a bat, but had no one else felt the reverberation, the shudder of the house? Some nights she lay awake long after everyone else slumbered, listening to the hoot of the steamboats pushing upriver from exotic places like Natchez, Vicksburg, Baton Rouge, New Orleans. Now that the war was over, the Mississippi River had opened to civilian traffic. The daily symphony of sounds from the landing below the bluff had thickened with longshoremen calling to the crews of boats docking or steaming away, loaded with passengers, cotton, and other crops headed north. Nighttime was quieter, with a rhythm and music all its own, distant foghorns, the call of night watchmen, perhaps a drunken sailor singing a bawdy song on his way out of a waterfront saloon. Now, only muffled silence, as though her ears had suddenly gotten stuffed with cotton wadding. Shoving aside Thomas Ann's bony knees, she lay back and pulled the quilt under her chin. With spring slow to arrive this year, the night was sharp and cool for late April. The river had been roiling with snowmelt for weeks, overflowing its bounds, flooding the plains of the Delta on the Arkansas side and across the state line in Mississippi. Though Memphis, high on its bluff, remained safe from the angry water, she breathed a prayer for the roustabouts below. She lay awake for a long time, unable to shake the feeling of unease. Maybe that disturbance had been a dream after all. She hoped it had been. But sometime later, her eyes flew open at the sound of feet on the stairs just outside the bedroom door. The room had lightened, but shadows still lingered in the corners. Then, oddly, a flare of light penetrated the blackness beyond the open street-side window. Scrambling out of bed, Aurora ran to lean over the windowsill. Lamplight flickered and swam along the street like giant fireflies, all headed in the direction of the river. A wagon rattled by, then a couple of horses, then more wagons. Suddenly, the street was alive with chaos and noise, men pouring out of their houses, calling to one another. "Steamboat exploded." The words came clear at last in the melee. "Fire! People in the water!" Craning to see beyond the mad activity pouring toward the bluff, Aurora spotted a stream of boats backing out into the river. Impossible to distinguish individual vessels from amongst the various